In today's world, change is happening at a rapid pace with just about everything. With constant upgrades to technology tools and new ways of communication, it seems like playing catch-up is all we do. But let's take a step back. How do we navigate change from the advertising and marketing industry and beyond? Welcome to the Adlibber Podcast, featuring conversations of influence, some of them planned, much of it ad-libbed. Hey, welcome to the first episode of the Adlibber Podcast developed by the team here at Gavin. So since you don't know anything about the Adlibber Podcast or who we are, I'm Michaela.
And I'm Jay.
And we'll go into a little bit about ourselves. So I'm Michaela. I'm a junior digital project manager here at Gavin. I went to school for broadcasting and media production with a minor in marketing. I have a background in broadcasting with having roles with local news and radio stations in Central PA. And currently I help manage various digital clients around Gavin.
And I'm Jay, the public relations project manager here at Gavin. I've been in the media and marketing industries for 14 years. I majored in mass communications and spent the first 13 years of my career working as a reporter at a variety of publications in central Pennsylvania, including weekly, daily, and business outlets. I oversee the PR team here at Gavin, which produces our communications content, including blogs and the Adlibber Podcast. Our team also supports a wide range of clients with public relations and brand communication strategy. Joining us on the first episode of the Adlibber is Gavin's president and CEO, Mandy Arnold. Mandy has more than 20 years of market strategy and brand communications experience. She opened Gavin in 2011. Welcome, Mandy.
Thank you very much.
And we wanted to bring Mandy on this first podcast as well because, Mandy helped us develop this. While we're the hosts of this podcast, and you'll see us a lot. You won't get tired of us because we'll be popping back up every now and then. But we wanted to bring Mandy on this first episode to come in and, why we're starting the Adlibber and what we're going to be doing with it in the future.
Sure. Yeah. First, the Adlibber, it's very exciting because as a team, we're always trying to push forward and understand the changes in the market through really broader conversations, really talking to those that influence the marketplace. Obviously, we have influencers in-house, but we wanted to create a platform where we could actually invite some special guests in, even people that are in the regional market, national market. So the Adlibber really was that element that gave us a platform to take it to the marketplace.
Yeah, but I know when we talk about the Adlibber, kind of like our little tagline is conversations of influence, some of it planned, but much of it ad-lib. So we want this to be a really relaxed environment where people can come in and, discuss things, not just come in and share expertise, which is what we want, but, we want questions and things like an ongoing conversation of things that are happening.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the best insights come about when you're having that conversation at a round table with a group of folks who really are versed in their industry. There's so much that each person in this office even brings to the table. I think something as an agency owner that surprises me every day is the importance of perspective. And so the Adlibber was something that came out of that thought process was, let's get people around the table. Let's have a conversation about what's emerging, what are the trends, what should people be paying attention to, and what are some of the things they're faced with on a daily basis. I think having that conversation really helps with problem solving.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very helpful as a listener to kind of gauge the perspective that a lot of our guests are going to bring on. We internally, we talk about a lot of different topics, but then when you go out into the market and you work with clients, you get to hear how their business is changing and evolving, the challenges that they have and how we can kind of help them overcome those things. It's really another way, another platform for us to kind of do that and leverage our skill set in a different way, right?
Yeah, definitely. And we'll kind of go in right now with some more logistical things about the Adlibber, but we'll be bringing you content around once a month. We'll have either, like we said, someone influential in some different industry going into some subjects, having that conversation. We're bringing some of our team members to share kind of some of their new innovations on projects or, some things that we've seen work really well and just keep continuing to have that conversation of our growth. And then you'll be able to find the Adlibber on anywhere you find podcasts, right, Jay?
Yep. You have Spotify, iTunes, any other channels where you stream podcasts. We're going to be out there. We're going to be trying to bring you, like you said, monthly content. Some of it's going to be learning from our team. Some of it's going to be just, gaining insights from other influencers on how their industries and organizations are evolving. That's the key thing. We want you to be able to, learn a little bit about their business, learn a little bit about ours, and have it be these, short conversational segments where you can kind of take something, kind of apply it to your own organization's strategy and hopefully grow from the conversations you're hearing here on the Adlibber.
Yeah. And, while we have Mandy here as our first guest, we thought it would be good to kind of dive into, some of her history and some of her insights. So I'll go ahead and throw it over to Jay, who has some really good insights for us.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a step back and talk a little bit about how we got here. We just celebrated another anniversary, 8 years strong, into this new year. Can you talk a little bit about, how we got here? What prompted the start of Gavin?
Sure. Yeah. I know we were talking a little bit earlier, and I had mentioned I wish there was a aha moment for Gavin. It really came out of necessity, where I was an independent consultant on the side while I was the vice president of marketing and communications for a luxury building supply brand in the Mid-Atlantic. And it was during the recession, and which was very, very challenging for a lot of brands. And in the process, was being told by a lot of other influencers that I was familiar with that I really should go out on my own. And so I took the leap in the middle of a recession and built a client base and started with a couple of large contracts, which was even surprising to me at the time. And before I knew it, I had a brick and mortar location and had 4 employees, our first year, which is really exciting to be celebrating 8 years, breaking our next level of success. So this is it's a big milestone year for us this year.
Yeah, now we're over 20 employees strong and 3 offices, and
right.
I mean, are you surprised at how quick? ever surprised at how quickly stuff has snowballed for Gavin? How much we've grown in that time period?
Yeah, I will say, the burden of success, definitely where that moving target of expectations is something, you deal with on a regular basis, where it's always a surprise of, wow, I can't believe we achieved that all together. But then also thinking about what's next for Gavin and how do we get there? How do we get to that next level of achievement and what's required to keep competing? Because as you both know, our mission statement is to give Madison Avenue a run for the money, to prove that Main Street can compete both creatively and then strategically with communications. And so to fulfill that mission, we're always taking a look at ourselves inwardly and saying, okay, what's next? How do we get ahead? How do we make sure clients see us as an organization that's really bringing the bigger ideas to the marketplace, the best creative? And so it's, I am very surprised to answer your question of how we've gotten here, but I'm not surprised because we have such an amazing house of talent. The folks here put out some of the best work I've ever seen in the industry. And so I'm very excited to see what they're going to be able to do in 2020.
Is there one thing that stands out about just the last year, just like a project or a community effort, something we were a part of that really crystallizes everything we've been able to accomplish?
Sure. I mean, we've had huge clients sign on, which were great. And the word huge is always relative, right? So I think a big campaign that really stood out for me, which many of you know, was launched here in Central Pennsylvania, which is the I Am Progress campaign as part of Community Progress Council. And that was something in working with CPC and their executive team over the past couple of years through their rebranding and their repositioning. There was a moment in time that came about where we said, we really need to make sure people understand the face of poverty. And so how could we as an agency help a nonprofit break through stigma and leverage communications marketing in a way that got people talking? And we were able to develop the I Am Progress campaign, which the I Am Progress hashtag came out of a staff meeting at CPC. And we heard it and we said, this is big. This is a big idea. And we were fortunate enough that the client said, you know what, we want you to run with it. And they let us do that. And we developed that large scale campaign with billboards and breakthrough creative. We were able to sign on some pretty influential individuals in the community to actually be the face of the campaign. And that campaign not only was close to me because I was one of the individuals that was showcased in the campaign as utilizing social services growing up, but also the other thing that hit close to home for me was that it is a campaign that is focused on a strong urban core. And as you guys know here at Gavin, that's something that is near and dear to us. We're big believers in building strong urban core markets and bringing creative jobs to Main Street. And so that, I would say Community Progress Council, the I Am Progress campaign, was the showcase for 2019 in my mind. And I'm sure if you ask every staff member here, everybody has their favorite, but that one was my favorite.
Yeah, that was one that we had highlighted recently on our blog, kind of recapping our year. one of the bigger campaigns we were a part of, everybody said, you can't not, you have to include that. I mean, it was very impactful. It worked across departments to kind of get it done. And there's a lot of those examples we have in our portfolio just in the last year. I know every year is a different kind of year. And this year, you mentioned the urban core, and we're coming into January here, and we were talking about how do we continue to grow and evolve? And our Lancaster office is another way we're doing that. Yep. Another urban market we're getting into. Can you talk about that a little bit and how that helps propel us a little bit more as an agency?
Yep. So Lancaster, we've had our eyes on the Lancaster market for a couple of years. We have a few clients over there, Community First Fund, Kunzler Meats, as well as some of our larger statewide clients that go into that marketplace. And we just are very aware that being engaged in the local community is a big part of how we serve our clients. So not only in the work that we do and understanding their localized markets, but also the investments that we make. If you talk to anyone here, I hope that they'll communicate the concept of the goodwill bottom line, or goodwill capitalism, the concept that we want to reinvest. We take a look at the effect we can have on our local communities. And so we've been doing that in York and Harrisburg for the past 8 years. And so having a physical location in Lancaster City was something that I think just became part of who we are whenever we're serving clients and we're thinking about expansion. We're thinking, how do we actually, get engaged? How do we build relationships in that community? How do we build recognition for who we are? But also leveraging a physical presence is just part of who Gavin is.
What would you say is something that applies from earlier in your career, an example or an experience from a past role that you kind of taken and applied to Gavin and how we go about executing our own market strategy?
Yeah, I think, I think a big part of leadership style is falling flat on your face a lot, and learning from trial and error. Aside from that, and, being open to failure and learning and getting better and continuously evolving. I think the other big thing I learned early on in my career were a couple of situations. One was I was working for Anheuser-Busch, and, I've never been, while I enjoyed drinking alcohol, I didn't feel as though I was someone that could truly be an advocate for going out and representing brands within that portfolio. And so as I was working with them, what I uncovered was the need for a designated driver program. And I was in New York and uncovered the opportunity to launch a designated boater program. And so that was something that my boss, I think, saw that, hey, you know what, this person has individual interest in something really different, and they gave me the room to be able to jump into something. And so I just early on, I think I was in my early 20s, living just outside of New York City, working for a large brand, because they gave me the opportunity to dig into something I felt passionate about, was being responsible with alcohol consumption, and I had a lot of success with it, and people really respected me for the effort I had done, and they allowed me to continue expanding. That was something I really started to embrace, was, hey, you know what, we want to facilitate our teammates taking on projects that they love. And sure, you're not going to love every single project that you work on, but we want to make sure that there is a closer connection to the work that they do. And that's why, we work so hard to make sure our teammates know our culture and our core values and understand our clients' brands. I think the other thing too is, I've worked in, the only thing I don't have in my background is firearms. I do have alcohol, tobacco, consumer packaged goods, potato chips, potato bread, everything. So the other one was working with RJ Reynolds. I worked for a very large agency based out of Chicago, and caught on to experiential marketing, and in the process was awarded many accolades from RJ Reynolds, my client. And that was another one where I wasn't a smoker, but I completely appreciated the importance of brand perspective and brand persona. And because they trusted me, they gave me some leeway to actually launch a complete experiential program where I trained all of our brand managers in Maryland and DC. And that was something, again, I got my first pat on the back from the actual national client. And here I was, just a junior associate. And I just saw that, if you really take ownership of a project and, really embrace the opportunity and navigate some of the challenges in the marketplace, you can create something really special. And I would say those two instances really early on in my career shaped how I wanted to run the business, so that I created a place where the talent we have today can really thrive.
Is that why we're sort of set up? We're set up as a full service agency, really take advantage of that, the complex challenges that some of these brands face, that you really need to have all those pieces working in concert with one another?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think, all those touch points are curated together to create the complete brand experience. And part of being full service is understanding all of the trials and tribulations that a brand might go through. And that includes message development, brand definition, market, analysis, right down to crisis communications. And working with early on in my career with alcohol and tobacco, I learned a lot about crisis communications. And so, today that's why we have full service.
And I also think you talking about that, then seeing how just like the everyday things happen here at Gavin kind of also merges. Like, Mondays we have our meeting, we have it all together, and we kind of run through some things to make sure everyone's set for the week. Everyone knows what they're doing. If there's, we go through industry updates, so we keep everyone updated on everything, and everyone can have like a say on, various things. And we have every first Friday we come together and do something. Maybe we brainstorm on a project or something like that. So I think that's something that even funneled its way down into, everyday operations at Gavin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we, we're talking about the team culture type of events. One of the things I am really proud of is Wonk. Every first Friday, and Wonk, I remember when we first launched that, and everyone looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, what in the world is Wonk? What does that mean? And I was like, well, the wonkish pursuit, the obsessive pursuit of, this creating something that you're really proud of. And today, when you think of it, what it is today and how much people look forward to Wonk every first Friday and showing off their work and ideas and collaborating, it really has become a staple in who we are. The other thing too are the We Culture shout outs every Monday. That was something I remember when we launched that as a team. I remember going to our office manager at the time, and I said, I want you to start asking people for shout outs at the end, and it's not going to make sense, and give it time. And now it's something we're enormously proud of. If you get a shout out at the end of our production meeting on Monday, it's an opportunity to say thank you to a teammate, maybe who did something special or maybe was struggling with something and overcame it. It just ensures that we touch base every Monday morning, with a touchstone that reminds us why we're here and that we're working as a team. And that's what's going to make us successful.
Yeah, shout outs are great. I feel like every time we do have that meeting, like almost everyone in the room gets a shout out every week, which is so great to just see everyone interacting. And, someone gives a shout out and you just see the person in the corner, like smiling, like
right. They're very happy.
Yeah, yep. Exactly.
Yeah. Shout outs, I got to say, make me the most proud of the team, because I don't always, now that we're more than 20 people, I don't interact with every single employee every day. I don't know everything that comes through our house. So I find that very important. I'm often thinking, what's it going to be like when we reach our goal of 40 staff? It's, we got to make sure we're maintaining that culture through that growth.
Yeah. So you just touched on some of like your goals. So going into that, kind of what are some goals for Gavin moving forward?
Well, I think the big thing for me personally is to make sure we're growing in a way that is very scalable and sustainable for us. And by sustainable, I mean that we are maintaining who we are. You see a lot of agencies who get bigger and they really lose track of why they started the agency or what made them so good to begin with. And so for us, it's making sure that we protect that culture. But we do have goals where we want to, again, really affirm our position that Main Street can give Madison Avenue a run for the money. And so we're thinking about how do we position ourselves as an agency to not only attract bigger brands, which we are, but how do we make sure we're attracting the best talent, and how do we make sure that those jobs are being created on Main Street, and how do we make sure that the best talent wants to stay with us. And so culture really is woven through those strategies. We, as I mentioned, we want to grow to 40 people. We want to be the best boutique agency on the East Coast. And so those things are constants on my mind for how do we grow. And Lancaster, Jay, as you mentioned, was one of the opportunities we had to kind of dot the map to continue our expansion as we start to head towards closer to Madison Avenue.
Right. Yeah,
remind them that we're here.
Harrisburg and York and Lancaster, and continuing to grow our staff all in every department. Mm-hmm. So I guess the question I would have on that is, as we're growing and as we're doing these things, like, what do you see influencing us externally? Like, what are some industry changes you're expecting will come down over the next year or the next couple of years and how do we respond to it then?
I think in 2020, I am really thinking that internal communications is going to be a huge demand. I think that brands are really going to start to realize that as an employer, they have to have a voice. And so I think we're going to see an increased demand for services specific to the same way we approach, let's say, a consumer brand externally. We're going to be asked more and more to curate brands or help nurture brands internally. And how do you get employee advocates? How do you get brand advocates? And so I see that as one thing that's really going to affect us. I think some of the other things is just the rapid change of technology and media. I mean, we see that where I feel like sometimes we're just getting beat up. And it's making sure that we're setting aside time and investment for our teammates to continually advance their skills and make it okay to test new things. I mean, that was kind of where the Adlibber came about, right? Was us saying, hey, we got to do this. We've got to be thinking about how we broaden our conversations of what's going to influence the market. And I think, the other thing will really be just figuring out how do you mobilize people in a media market that is just so noisy, so noisy. I mean, I think, Andy Warhol's prediction of everyone's going to be famous. They're going to have their famous 15 minutes. I mean, it's here, right? And so how do we manage that media market for our clients to make sure that their voice is clear? But obviously we're getting pushed to let the consumer take more and more ownership of brand voice. And so those dynamics at play are really going to be challenging for us. And I think our commitment to advise without fear as a core value is going to guide us through being really agile through a lot of that change.
Yeah, I mean, markets every year it gets a little bit different. I mean, there's so many channels out there that people can tap into as individuals or as organizations, and so many places a business can advertise these days. How do we kind of advise and kind of figure out what are the best ways to leverage the dollars that they have to maximize what they're trying to achieve, and that's not easy.
Oh yeah, because a big piece of feedback we hear from our clients is a like and an impression doesn't necessarily convert to revenue, and so how do we make sure that the clients' expectations for performance, how they're measuring success, is clear and dead set on the center of our radar, and so it's it is a big challenge. The other big thing on my mind is the emergence of other media platforms that internationally. So WhatsApp, as an example, WhatsApp is huge when you go to international markets, but it hasn't quite caught on at the same level here in the U.S. And so how do we think about that's coming? Like last year, Michaela, I remember we had a pretty deep conversation about what do we do. Like we know Facebook has acquired WhatsApp. What do we do? How do we prepare? And we started advising clients like, hey, let's talk about what are we going to do when this happens. And so that's the other big thing on my mind are these emerging media, but not only the ones that are here in the U.S., the ones that are coming in from other markets that perhaps don't follow the same privacy rules, that play different games with technology. And so those are, we're there to guide our clients through those changes.
So we talked about kind of getting Gavin started. We kind of been talking a lot about where we are, but there's certainly a significant chunk of time in between.
Sure.
Can we talk a little bit about other key moments, maybe years 2 through 7? What did we have any pain points in the growth as we get to the point we're at now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Lots of pain. I mean, we, as you guys know, we were named, Emerging Business of the Year, top 50 fastest growing for a couple of different years in a row. And in that process, we were growing quite rapidly. And I think it's easy as an agency owner and the whole team here to get caught up in that feeling of, really rapid pace growth. And one of the biggest pain points in the growth was realizing that, we need to build the team, get the right people on the bus so we can actually grow together. One of the things that I love so much about our success is I think today we have a team of 20 people that are very important members of our team. I mean, everyone in here, we're very fortunate to have the team we have today, and people that have been here for a long time. Our art director's been here since day, I think, 52. I heard him right off the street. And so building that team that's part of the success was a big part of it. Some of those growing pains were also realizing that we may need to have some strategic maneuvers in the marketplace, and that's where 2 acquisitions came in. We've talked about before, in I think it was 2016, maybe we acquired TFM Advertising, which was a well-known entity in the central Pennsylvania market. They did some large-scale media buying. And then just last year, we acquired Holberg Design, and that was a talent acquisition. We really wanted to expand our creative house as we started realizing building that deeper bench, our house of talent, which is one of our core values, is that we are a house of talent. And then just making sure that we are thinking through the ownership of our own voice. We spend so much time marketing our clients and building communication strategies. And about 2 years ago, we dedicated more time to our own marketing and our own public relations. To the team, you guys know how much time we put into our own marketing all the time, and we probably put maybe 10-15% of our agency hours into our own marketing. This is why the Adlibber is here. But I think a big part of that pain point, Jay, to get back to your question, is making sure that our voice continued to evolve in the marketplace over time. Last year, I think it was early last year, we rolled out our new tagline, Evolving Influence. And that was very purposeful because we said, we really need to start elevating the recognition of the work that we do, the types of work that we do, the types of strategic thinkers we have here. And so we relaunched the website, we relaunched all of our materials, we rewrote everything really to affirm our position. And last year was a big year for us. We signed very large clients like HAC, Central Pennsylvania's Community College. We work with clients like Gladfelter Insurance Company, Gladfelter Paper, Kinsley. We also work with Papa John's, franchisees, so on and so on. And so that roster, as it has grown, we've continued to evolve. And so that's been, I think, some of the bigger challenges is taking ownership of that responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I'm sure when you look back at the first year or two and the type of clients you had versus the ones we have now, just the diversity. We're talking about a lot of the capabilities on our team, how we've grown, and being full service. And that means a lot of different things, a lot of different skill sets. But we're also doing that for a wide range of clients these days. How many different?
Right, you got pizza, you got education, you got
construction. I mean, there's a lot of different areas we're getting into, and as that bench gets deeper, I mean, we all kind of come with expertise in certain areas, a little bit more so, and we have to grow into others, and that's also kind of why the podcast came to be for us. I mean, it's a way for us to dive into those conversations and learn a little bit more about some of the clients maybe we want to work with, and get those influencers in from that industry to come in and talk about it. Right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I would say that, thinking through how we see the market really adjusting in terms of the types of skill sets that we have, I think that even though we work in a wide variety of industries, we still have our core competencies: education, healthcare, consumer goods, government, nonprofit. And the fundamentals, I think, of what we do always remain the same. And so it really comes down to just, really accountable work, holding ourselves accountable, making sure we have an authentic voice for the client. You guys have heard the phrase truth in branding and driving action. That was really before we rolled out Evolving Influence. That was how we described what it is we wanted to do, was devoted to truth and branding and, driving influence, driving action. And so the fundamentals remain the same of how we go to market, how we help our clients.
Yeah, I think that's great. You always have to just go back to the basics and make sure that you have that good to go from the start, and then, kind of get in that other influence from the various industries that we work in. Yeah. But okay, I think this, we're wrapping up here. But thank you, Mandy, for being on the podcast
pleasure.
Today. I don't think this will be the last that we'll hear from you. I think we'll definitely have you on,
Happy to be your guinea pig. Have you on to talk again with various influencers or anything like that. But yep, thanks for being here today. Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks for laying the foundation for what's going to be an awesome podcast moving forward.
Yep. Go ahead, and we'll have another episode coming up for you shortly for the Adlibber Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Adlibber Podcast. To find new episodes and get more content from our team at Gavin, make sure to visit our website, gavinadvertising.com/the Adlibber. The Adlibber is also available on Spotify, iTunes, and other places where you stream your podcasts.